So I'm on here because I want to be able to look at the comments that you guys wrote yesterday. I have them written out here and a couple of things that I want to respond to. So thank you guys for all of your comments. It was good to have you do that curiosity reflection and then write to me what you thought, and now I'm going to tell you what to do with it. That was the whole idea. So I've got that up here so that I can address it and reflect to you guys based on the exercise from yesterday. Okay, so yesterday I asked you all, instead of making rules about what you want to do with Halloween candy, and as a reminder, if you're not worried about Halloween, think about this in any context or situation where you might be triggered to eat in a way that doesn't feel good to you or aligned to you, okay? But we're focusing on Halloween because that happens in the next couple days. So I asked you to get curious instead of make rules. And I won't go into all of that again because that was yesterday's video. Go back and watch yesterday's video if you don't know what I mean by getting curious instead of making rules. And I want to share with you some of the responses and then what to do with them. So we're kind of real time working through what the issues are, okay? So I wrote down a couple of them that I want to kind of walk you through and respond to, and hopefully this will help you guys think about how to do things differently over the weekend, and then on Monday we'll check back in and see how you're doing. Before I get to these responses, I just want to say, feel free to either comment to me in the video or send me a DM, or if you're in the Mighty Network group, because you're watching this later, feel free to send me a chat in the Mighty Network group or comment in the Mighty Network group. I will do my best to address these comments and questions. The comments and questions are starting to come in, but a couple of you asked me, where can I ask question? Go ahead and ask them in the comments in the videos. And if for some reason I miss it, you can DM me. I'm easily accessible. So just keep asking me. You can DM me however you want to. You can ask me a question and I'll make sure that I address it pretty well. Okay? Okay. Oh, and also next week we'll be back to 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just had a conflict today, and hopefully we'll be able to stick with that time going forward. Okay, you got it. Okay, so yesterday when I asked you to get curious, what I asked you to do was think about your context of behaviors when it comes to the Halloween candy. What do you do? What is your pattern? How does it feel? What happens for you? Get curious. Talk about what happens, right? And so I'll take the first one. She said, I'm a longtime sober alcoholic. I eat sugar and junk food in exactly the same way that I used to drink. I never even consider having one or two snacks. I'd almost rather have none than one, just like the drink. So what she's saying is once she gets into it, she doesn't stop. Just like it was for alcohol with her, the same thing is happening with, notice how she said sugar and junk food. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. If I have just one snack, sweet, biscuit, I think she's in the UK, it's awesome. Snack, sweet, biscuit, it's game over. Help. Okay, here's the thing. A couple of things are going on here, and this is true for all of us, so this will be really good for you to address. I won't go ton into it today, but junk food, processed food, hyperpalatable food, so food that is high in salt, sugar, fat content, that has been unnaturally combined together. So all of your candy, all of your junk food, all of your processed food is essentially messing with your brain chemistry. So when she talks about she can't just have one and then stop there, there is quite literally a trigger that is being activated in the brain that is urging her to eat more. Now, there is a continuum of this trigger. So while everybody is triggered to some degree by processed foods, that's what processed foods are designed to do in the body. And so again, I'm going to try not to go super in depth in this, but quite literally they have food engineers and food scientists that are designed to hit the bliss point in the brain. And that bliss point in the brain is it's the part of the brain that will tell you to continue to eat more of it and bypass any of your cues to stop it. Okay, so that is all happening biochemically in your brain. That's not an active process. It's not an intentional process. That's happening in the background. Okay. And so when you eat processed food and sugar, it is activating the bliss point in the brain, and that makes it harder to stop. And when I say there's a continuum of this, it is individualized. So some people really, really struggle with it. It's why some people can have a glass of wine and then stop. And some people truly, when they have a glass of wine, it leads to 2 or 3 or the whole bottle, and it's very difficult to stop. That leads to, struggling with alcohol. There is no judgment there. It's an awareness of what happens for me, right? Can I have a piece of candy and then be done with it? Or do I really struggle with that when that candy activates the biochemistry in my brain and it makes it really difficult to stop? The reason why I'm talking about the biochemical activation in the brain is because I want you to know that this is not a lack of willpower. There's not something wrong with you. There's not something malfunctioning. This food, processed food, especially candy, we're coming up on Halloween, especially all the candy, it is quite literally designed for you to continue to eat more of it, right? And so if you find that through the awareness of your context, right, through the awareness of your habits, through the awareness of your patterns, that you are someone who struggles to stop after one piece, now we get to work with that differently. And so a prior you might have said, oh, I struggle with one piece. I can't have any candy. Oh my gosh, I'm so deprived. I'm not allowed to have any candy because I struggle with it. I have so much, it's so hard for me, right? And we end up putting all of these layers of emotion on top of what's happening. And in that way, we end up feeling bad about the situation. And here's what I'm going to present to you today. If you know that once you start eating the candy, that it's really difficult for you to stop, and then you feel all the shame and guilt afterwards, are we really in a situation where you're feeling restricted or deprived if you are decide not to have any candy? Is that really restriction or deprivation? Or are you acting in an effort to feel more empowered and confident in your decisions, right? So, for the gal who says, I'm a long-time sober alcoholic, help, once I start in on the candy, it's hard for me to stop, then I say, then don't start in on the candy. And further than don't start in on the candy, can you change your relationship to your decision to say no, right? So if previously your decision to say no has come with a cascade of negative emotions that look like, but I want the candy. The candy's so good. Everybody else can have the candy. Why can't I have the candy? The candy's so delicious and everyone can have it and I can't. All that does is create a negative emotion in your body, which then is going to bring you more negative results. That's a conversation for a different part of this training. We will get there much later. But what I'm saying is you have the option, you have the opportunity to say, when I start in on this candy, it ends up making me feel bad, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Physically, because I overeat it and it doesn't feel good in my body. Mentally, because I feel frustrated with myself for continuing to go down this pattern of overeating. Emotionally, because I feel frustrated that it's hard for me to stop and I just keep going in this washing machine of, why is this so hard for me? Why can everybody else do it? Why can't I have just one piece of candy? That why that you're stuck with, that why me, that's optional. That is the part of this that you have the option to drop. And I'm going to ask you to examine your decisions about the candy in the next couple of days from a removed perspective, from a 30,000 foot perspective, and ask yourself some different questions. Am I really restricted or deprived if I say, you know what, when I go in on the candy, it's really difficult for me to stop, so I think I'm going to decide not to do the candy this Halloween. Or I'm going to decide not to do the candy just for the day. And then I'm going to ask myself tomorrow how I feel about not doing the candy. And when you ask yourself tomorrow, how do I feel about not doing the candy? Again, you want to do it from a place of curiosity. How did that feel for me to go through the day and not have those feelings of shame and guilt and why did I do that? And why did I always do that? How did that feel for me to come out the other side of yesterday without any of those feelings? That felt pretty good. Would I like to do that again? Maybe yes, maybe no. Again, curiosity is what we want to use as we go into this. So I'm going to argue that in her case especially, she says she's a long-time sober alcoholic, right? How does it feel each day when you don't have a drink and you don't get into the depths of, let's call it challenge and issues that came with being an alcoholic. How does it feel when you go through the day and you don't have that? And the answer is probably something like, I feel empowered. I feel more confident in my life. I feel better about my decisions. I feel better about my relationships, right? And here's the kicker. She may still say, yeah, there's a part of me that would really like to have a drink, but I know that this way of life feels better for me in the long run. Same thing happens with candy in this situation, right? So you've got the Halloween candy. And I'm not asking you to say, oh no, I really don't want to have candy. What I'm really asking you to say is, you know what? Yeah, that Snickers bar does sound good, but I feel better emotionally, physically, mentally when I do X instead of. And that X is going to be up to you guys. One piece, no pieces, hour by hour, asking yourself if you want to have one, whatever it is, whatever you put into place. What you're looking for is, yes, I like candy, I want to have candy, but I feel better when I behave this way. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. She says, I eat one, I eat 20 gal. Then I live in remorse as guilt. I live in remorse and guilt as a failure. Same thing here. So she's saying, when I go into the candy, I eat 20 of it. Then I have remorse and guilt and feel like a failure. All right. The question is, do you want to eat the one then? And I mean that genuinely. Do you want to eat the one? There may be that quick dopamine response that says, oh yeah, that candy's really good. But think about it. Think about the long-term effect of, once I eat one, I know that I eat 20. So do I really want to eat the one? Genuinely, does that feel like a good, empowering decision for me? Will I feel empowered and good about that decision I'm making, right? So that's where you want to get curious and ask that question. Another one says, I feel like when I begin to eat the candy, there is an immediate avalanche for a need of more candy. Basically, once I start, I don't stop and I eat it in excess. So the same thing here, but I also want to reiterate that what's happening for her is that dopamine signaling, right? So like I said in the beginning, she feels like when she eats one, there's this immediate rush and need to eat more. So that is the feeling of the biochemical changes in the brain. What she's describing truly is how the dopamine signaling gets activated and how the processed food is activating the different biochemistry in the brain that says, yes, this is lighting up in a major way. Give me more of it. I would like more of it. It's overriding all of the satiety cues. It's overriding all of, it's increasing all of your hunger cues. That biochemistry that's unnaturally being activated by the sugar is absolutely providing you that rush of, oh my gosh, I want more of it, okay? And all of us, if you're really paying attention, have probably felt that before when you started to eat something that was processed, whether it's ice cream or candy or crackers or goldfish or chips or, cookies or whatever. It activates that signaling of, oh my gosh, this is so good, I want more. The idea is to be mindful of that signaling. Interesting. I had that piece of candy and now, wow, my brain is going crazy and telling me that I want to have more. In future videos, I will give you some tools to kind of urge surf this and help this go through. But first, being consciously aware that that's what happens for you, I want you to understand that that's a biochemical signaling in the brain. And so, yes, your body is telling you to eat more. So again, you... when you're deciding about eating the candy, going back to this concept of, are you really truly restricted and deprived if you say, you know what, candy doesn't serve me, I end up eating 20 pieces, I feel like crap after I do that, I feel like crap physically, mentally, and emotionally, I'm going to choose to say, not helpful for me, doesn't make me feel good about myself, doesn't make me feel empowered. That is not restriction or deprivation, is it? That is you making an intentional decision in line with an empowering feeling that you want to feel, okay? So I think one of the things I hear most from people is, yeah, but I can't make myself stop eating candy. I really want it. It's so good and it's around and my kids have it and I don't want to say no and everybody else gets to eat it. And my response is, those are all optional feelings for you to have. you can also look at this as a very empowering decision to be more in line with who you want to be. You are not, what's the word I want to say? The candy does not have some unnatural hold over you if you are staying present and connected to your curiosity. You are able to say, this doesn't serve me very well, and I think I want to make a decision more in line with what serves me. So if you are a person, and actually none of you wrote that you are a person who can just have one and kind of step away. If you're a person who can have one and step away, then I ask you, great, does that fit in with your empowering feelings that you want to feel? And for some of you, the answer is yeah, I can have one piece of candy, it's really good, and then I'm kind of done with it. And so if that is part of your emotional landscape, go ahead, have a piece of candy and be done with it. The key is to be intentional and mindful about your decisions, and that's why I go back to stop making rules about it. Instead, shift the way you're thinking about it. Is this truly restriction or deprivation, or woe is me if you decide not to eat Halloween candy? Or is it truly an empowering decision in line with who you want to be and how you want to feel on Monday morning, right? Okay, let me look at the comment here. Okay, yeah, so Jackie says your plan is to not start because it's hard to handle just one piece of candy. And here's what I want to say. I've worked with many people who started off with, I feel like I can't have just one piece or I'll eat the whole bowl. And as we do more of this work of thinking about food decisions differently, connecting to food decisions differently, a lot of the Who Am I Becoming work, that can change over time. So if you are someone who would like to be someone who can have a piece of candy and then stop, just know that that is quite possible for you after we continue to ask the right questions and change our mindset about things and change our vibration and our connection to this work. That can shift over time. So many of you said you felt like you have a good plan for the weekend. As I sign off today, my advice for you is to continually check in. So here's the big thing. If for some reason you go in with, the best laid plans and I'm not going to have any candy because it's going to make me feel empowered and I don't want to do that, and then all of a sudden you are sitting there and your kids got their candy all sorting and you've got the York peppermint patty that's just calling to you, and for whatever reason you eat the York peppermint patty. Be careful of what you do afterwards. In other words, it is your choice at that point whether or not you decide, see, I blew it. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this. I might as well eat all the rest of the candy and I'll start over again next week because I blew this decision and I always blow it. You can hear your mind taking you down a path that will make it more likely that you'll keep going with the candy. If you eat the York peppermint patty and you didn't intend to, your job is then to say, that's okay. My next decision is my most important one. What do I want to do next? How do I want to feel with my next decision? If you can stay mindful and connected through the process, what I promise you is that one piece of candy is not going to be a big deal. It's that you get into the shame and guilt of it, and that one piece becomes 12 pieces, become 20 pieces because you engage in what's called the what the heck response, right? I ate the one candy, totally off my plan, what the heck, I'll eat 20. You can combat that just by staying aware and becoming the observer and staying curious about your patterns of thinking and behavior through the process. So, I realize I'm getting a little technical here. What I want to leave you with today, I'm a little long as I always am, what I want to leave you with today is go in with a plan. Go in with a plan and an intention. We always do better when we have an intention. Even if you don't stick to that plan, having one is better than not having any. Go in with a plan. My plan personally is to check in with myself after we get back from trick-or-treating on Sunday night and see if I would like to have a piece of candy. I'll be really honest with you. Halloween candy these days is really, really super sweet for me. I just, truthfully, I'll eat a piece, and if I'm staying really connected to it, I go, whew, that's not my favorite. So I'm going to check in and see if I want one. And if I do want one, I will likely have one. and then I will check in again. And I know myself well enough to know that usually, A, that piece of candy oftentimes doesn't taste very good. But B, I will definitely be able to say that was really good. I don't think I want any more. That's just me. I don't have a trigger of eating one leading to 20. If I did, now that happens for me in other places, so it's not like I am exempt from that. If I did have that trigger, I would probably have the plan to not eat any and continue to check in with myself. How do I feel about that plan? How do I feel about that plan? Instead of, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Continuing to check in and saying, how do I feel about my plan? How do I feel about my plan? How do I feel about my plan? Okay? Have a plan, execute the plan, and then if for some reason you're not executing in the way that you intended to, move on. Move on. Catch the amount of times that you move into shame and guilt of what you just did, and oh my gosh, why do I always do that? That is much more detrimental than the candy itself. So move on quickly. Okay, that's your plan for the holiday. Starting on Monday, we're going to do our first challenge. It's called the Is It Worth It Challenge, which I'm excited to bring to you guys, and we're going to be working through that all next week. It'll go pretty nicely with the Halloween stuff, and you guys will decide what you want to do with the leftover Halloween candy. Please keep adding your comments and questions in the group. You can send them to me in a number of different places, and I'll catch you guys after the weekend. Happy Halloween, everyone.